Hello everybody, World's Strongest Man 2024 has come to a close, and I thought I would give my full rundown of the competition from start to finish. Now, spoiler alert for those of you who don't already know, podium streak is at 16 now, 16 of 17 pro podiums, and I came away with second this year. Some people might feel like that's a disappointment, but I'm going to get into why I'm actually quite proud of how I did, and Tom was just really good. Tom Stoltman ended up winning World's Strongest Man. Let's go back to the start and the trip down. We drove from Barrie, Ontario to Myrtle Beach. I love to have my car, be able to have the freedom to do what I want to do, and we had an Airbnb. Made the 19-hour trip down. I missed the athlete meeting, unfortunately. That would have been on Sunday night. We checked into the Airbnb, and Monday, Tuesdays filled with our athlete obligations, hanging out with the guys, seeing everyone, which was good. All the media, all the standard stuff. Then we got into groups and the heat stages. Now, at World's Strongest Man, they put us into 5 groups of 6, and then the top 2 in each group get through. The winner of each group straight through, and second and third do the stone off, stone back and forth to determine who is the winner. And even that's not a guarantee. I think people just, they feel as though if you're one of the best in the world, you're going to get through the groups with no problems, super easy. But that's just not the case, especially not in strongman. I was put into group number 2. This was with Austin Andrade, Andre Foytu, Spencer Remick, Nicholas Camby, and Gav Billiton. On paper, I would have been the favorite in the group for sure, but there were some really solid guys. We'll get into it, but big shout out to Andre, who is phenomenal and the youngest competitor at World's Strongest Man, the first ever competitor born in the 2000s, which as a 28-year-old, there's very few moments that make me feel old, but that was like, wow, okay. Before we get into the actual competition, in the link in the description, there are 3 things, 100% free: a guide to warm-ups, a guide to core bracing, and a guide to recovery. It is vitally important for me that I'm inspiring you guys to get out there and move and be the healthiest, strongest version of yourself. These things will help you 100%, and they are 100% free. Go ahead, check those out. Let's get into the World's Strongest Man 2024. This started with the Webster Stones, the walking stones. This is a really good event for me. It's also a really good event for Andre. So I turned to him before we went out and I said, are you happy to tie on this? Let's not destroy ourselves. So we did 40 meters. That was good for, I think, 3rd best out of 30 athletes, and we tied. I don't know who would have won if we actually went for it. I think he would have had a chance. I think I would have had a chance, but our thumbs would have been destroyed for a half a point, which wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense. Next up was the deadlift ladder. I ended up with 5 in 36 seconds, and I felt really good. There's a 300 to 380 kilos. I knew what I had to do, and I was able to pretty much just cruise through this one without too much drama, and so I won that event as well. Then we got 2 sandbag steeplechase. This absolutely murdered some guys. There was 3 sandbags, 120 kilos each, all different awkward shapes. You had to load it over a steeple, go under the steeple, and then load it to a platform. So it was really 6 10-meter intervals of 120 kilo sandbags. I think this is a time when a lot of guys should look themselves in the mirror, and if you can't do that, if you can't finish that because your just engine isn't big enough, because you don't have the aerobic capacity, is probably something to address in your training. And that was an event win as well. So day 1 finished with 3 event wins, one of them being a tie. Day 2 started off with the Viking press. This is one where I didn't have the best result at Royal Albert Hall, but context, I did that after a CrossFit tour when I wasn't training, I wasn't eating properly, I wasn't recovering like I should be. And with the same weights, I got the same number of reps, 14. But to be honest, I genuinely think I would have had 20 if I needed to get that far. I think Viking press could be one of my best events after doing that. The best of everyone, I believe, was 17, but I could have surpassed that without too much drama. Last event was the car walk, and at this stage, Andre was still close enough to me that he could have caught me, and I asked if he wanted to make an agreement again. He would have needed a lot of things to go right, and car walk would be one of my best events, one of his worst events. So we made an agreement that he's just going to go a couple of meters. I'm going to go a meter past him. Happy days. He finishes the group in 2nd, and I finished the group in 1st, of course. Small shout out here to Austin Andrade, because the last thing you want to do if you're making these types of agreements is to do it at the expense of another competitor. And I said to him, here's what we're going to do, just so you're aware. You finishing will not change your place. He was locked into 3rd. Andre was locked into 2nd. So I said, if you want to save some energy for the stone off, then by all means. And he said, okay, let me just go away and think about it. I told him, no worries, you don't even need to tell us what you're going to do because it doesn't matter to us, but I don't want you to feel like you're wronged by exerting energy you don't need to. He came to me maybe 20 minutes later and said, just so you know, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna finish the event. As a new guy, I think it's better for my image, and I think it's better for me as an athlete just to go out and give a full effort, which 100% hats off to him. Very, very well done. And I think it's a great attitude to have. I think there's times when you're in a position like me where you're trying to do the least amount of work possible. And for someone like Austin, who's just breaking into the scene, coming and showing I'm going to give my absolute all regardless is certainly admirable. Him and Andre did the stone off, and despite Andre being well ahead, Austin ended up getting out of our group. Then we had rest day. We had our equipment familiarization. I was really confident with everything. Then we went off to the zoo. And if you haven't seen the zoo video yet, that might have been the best day of my life. I get that it's a controversial thing and how you interact with animals, whatever. My opinion, I think if you see an unhappy animal, it's relatively obvious. But if they are being emotive and they're jumping around and they're running and they're playing, it's hard for me to imagine that their life is that horrible. I also think that the difference between sanctuaries and zoos and reserves, I think for the most part, they're all doing the same shit and just sitting on a pedestal, some of them. Anyway, that's an aside. So this finals was now set. The 10 competitors that made the finals: Tom Stoltman, myself, Evan Singleton, Matt Ragg, Tristan Hoth, Canadian boy, phenomenal. He won his group. Really, really well done. He's on a heater at the moment. Wes Terwinski, another Canadian who won a stone off. Austin Andrade, Pavlo Kordiaka, Luke Stoltman, and Ivars Schmuckstellis. Something to note, 3 out of the 10 finalists were Canadian, and all 3 Canadians invited to World's Strongest Man made the finals. That, to me, speaks volumes, saying that 3 out of 3 Canadians made the final, 1 out of 6 Americans made the final. This is a really good case that next year they should be looking at more Canadians to come and give a crack, because we still have Maxime Boudreau, who didn't get an invite in time for him to feel like he could prepare. He should be back, and he is a phenomenal athlete. JF Caron, if he decided to come back, he definitely could. I think we could have 5 or 6 Canadians who are finals contenders and not just spot fillers. I think it's something that World should look to in the future. Now, event 1 in the finals, this is where it started to fall apart for me. This on paper is just a perfect event. A yoke into a frame. I've never lost a yoke, and I just won the frame carry at the Arnold with 400 kilo frame. This was only 350, 340. I picked it up before we went out, and my initial reaction was this is just too light. It doesn't, people are going to run with this. And unfortunately, that just wasn't the case. I finished the yoke very easily as expected. Most guys at that stage had not finished the medley, and I picked up the frame, all felt fine, all felt light. I started moving and it just sunk into my left hand a little bit. And when it did, it started to tear the skin. It wasn't, the implement wasn't smooth, it wasn't knurled, it was sort of rusty, and that's what gave it its grip. And I think that, for whatever reason, just cut into my hands. It could have been the humidity. Thankfully, they're much better now and healing quite quickly, but we'll pop in a picture here of what it looked like straight after. And after that happened, I mean, I came 6th in that event. It was a hard pill to swallow, for sure. And I needed to have a bit of a gut check of, like, what are you made of? And what do you do when things go wrong? And I was staring in the face of the max axle press, which might be the worst event to do with ripped up hands other than a farmer's walk, because you have to grip, rotate, spin. And huge shout out to Rob Kearney, who helped me tape up my hands, not just before the event, but between every single axle attempt. I needed my hands retaped because I was bleeding all over the bar. I was leaving skin on the bar, and it was hard to hold on to because my hands were so sore and wet from the blood. Now, of course, I made my way around it. I ended up getting 210 kilo axle. I narrowly missed 218 to set a new world record. And the only reason I missed that is because it was so hard for me to grab and rotate on my sternum. That being said, tied for first in that event, which I was really quite pleased with. Tied with Tom, which didn't do me a whole lot of favors because I needed to catch him. I was 3 points behind at this stage, but still quite happy. Event number 3, last event of the day 1, was the Keg Toss. And I had never thrown a keg over a bar. I put a YouTube video out of trying to make a homemade setup. I only got it to like 20 feet, which is nowhere even close to what we need to do. So it was almost a moot point, that whole effort. And all I managed to do was throw the keg against a tree. And then I'd sort of look at my height and I'd sort of do a multiple of how many me's was that it hit the tree and how many feet was that about. And I thought maybe I could hit the world record. When I looked before in warm-ups, I thought that's lower than I thought it would be for a world record. But throwing is so variable. As we're going through the rounds, it was fine at first, and then things started to get a little bit closer. We started at 6 meters. That was really easy, no problem. 6.5 meters again, pretty easy, no problem. And I think when we went to 7 meters, this is when someone in the stands had an event. I think it was some sort of epileptic event. So it put the event to a hold for 10 or 15 minutes. And the problem was I had just gone from axle where I was extending my back a lot. You guys know how I do that. And then it becomes really hard to flex, especially when you're cold. So my back was not in the best condition. And then that extra waiting period, I was getting pretty nervous about my ability to be ballistic with my extension and my flexion. We got to 7 meters and I hit it. I was very, very happy with that. I thought that would be a good result. Then I thought 7.5 was a 50-50. And I ended up hitting 7.5, which I was amped about. Then I went over to my family as they were adjusting. They were just behind us. And I said, I'm pretty sure I'm done. Like, I'll give it my best crack, but there's no way that I could do more, I don't think. I said, I've done things I didn't think I could do before, but, you know, I'm happy. And the keg was sitting in open wounds, wasn't ideal. I ended up hitting the world record, which is probably the thing I'm most proud of the whole weekend, hitting the keg world record. Good, but so did Tom, unfortunately for me, fortunately for him, and so did Wes Derwinski, who is a Canadian guy, phenomenal thrower. So ended day one in second place, which losing 5 points on the medley to start that I should not have lost if I was better prepared, then I would have been basically had won all the events in day one. That wasn't the reality. I was in second. I was 3 points behind Tom. And we were staring at Conan's wheel, tire deadlift, and Atlas stones going into day two. And I thought, okay, I could gain points on Tom in Conan's wheel. He's not very good at that. The deadlift, I can beat him. The Atlas stones, I could be second in the Atlas stones to him. And that's just a realistic expectation. Now, doing the Conan's wheel, when I picked it, my left arm was like half off. So I had picked it too close to the end, and I got a little bit anxious about, I just want to start and get going. So I picked it up. I should have dropped and readjusted. I didn't. I just started walking. I made it one revolution around and it was starting to slip, and that would have put me in 7th or 8th place. And so I held it, I stopped, very similar to what I did with the shield carry last year. And I actually like jumped it and hiked it. But you'll see when I hiked it, it was up my body, but I also brought in my left arm a bit to have a little bit better of a place. And was able to continue making my way around. And I knew that I was passing several people at this time. And I used this strategy. I held my hands like this. And that was genuinely just because I didn't want to have any sort of bit of my calluses hitting each other. And if I locked my fingers, I could leave my palms open and not have that issue. The problem with that is it's not as secure in your chest. So it started to fall fairly early. I got it down almost to my wrists and I was holding it just with my biceps. And I think I made it about half a revolution just on my biceps. Ended with a second place result there, 821 degrees, so 2.5 rotations, give or take, 2.25 rotations maybe. And I thought, okay, I'm in second, I've laid it down, Tom's after me, let's see how many points I gain. And Tom absolutely pulled it out of his ass, 777 degrees. He must have had phenomenal training on that because on paper he should have lost points, but he just didn't. I gained 1 point back. Now it's 2 points behind Tom for the lead. I did at this stage still think I have a chance. If he slips at all, I have a chance. That hope started to dwindle substantially when I went in the back and started to try to deadlift. And I couldn't hold 340 kilos. And the event was 372 kilos for reps. So I was quite concerned at this point. And I gave Coach Laws a quick call thinking, what could I do to hold this a bit better? And I asked if I went over under, is that better? He said, well, I don't know. You just have to figure out what works for you. Go out and do your best. Fair enough. So I never warmed up with it, but I had to go over under and strapped with my hands over under. And anyone who's had grip issues in the past or hand issues in the past, you know that you just can't put power into a bar because if you do, your hand's just going to slip straight off. So I was almost doing tempo deadlifts when it came to the reps because I didn't want it to slide out of my hand. That being said, I got 6 reps on this, which I was really happy with, generally speaking, as a result. Um, I think with my hands, if they were perfect and I could hold on like I always do, I think I was probably good for 10 reps, um, but not on the day. Tom, very, very well done, got 7 reps. He gained another 2.5 points on me on that event. And at that point, I think he was 4 up. That is sort of the nail in the coffin when you got Tom on Atlas Stones and you need 3 people to get between you. It was difficult, but that was sort of that's where we were at. And that was the realistic, likely outcome, is that Tom was going to win and I was going to come second. We also had the issue of now I have to put tacky into my hands. Rob and I worked and we had tape all over my hands, taped it around my wrists. And as I started to put tacky on, I thought that, the risk reward of slipping on the first stone, of zeroing the event just to save tacky in the hands a bit, I was genuinely a little bit medically concerned at this point, and I knew that I didn't have to do too much to secure my second place finish. But in the back of my head, I also know that when my strengths and weaknesses are listed, that Atlas Stones is one thing they list as a weakness, and that's just categorically untrue. My Atlas Stones are great. I've had some tacky issues in the past, but I can lift stones up with the best of them, and I wanted to prove that. So I put tacky all over as best I could. I avoided getting tacky in my cuts as best I could. Went out and just was doing what I was trying to do. Now, backtrack a little bit. I've had a popliteal issue, which is a muscle that wraps around your knee. I've had that for a few weeks now, just with split jerk training. And you see my movements there on my back foot is to rotate it outwards. And that happened when I went for the 210 and for the world record. So my knee was really flared up. I was having a hard time walking at this point. So we now had 2 competing difficulties. We had the back pinching from compensation from my hands, from deadlifts and from the keg toss and from the axle. We also have the knee that can't fully extend because of the spasmed popliteal. I just couldn't get to let go. And watching all the guys go out, they'd finish 3 stones, maybe 4 stones slowly. And really, the math said that I didn't even have to go out for the stones to secure second place. But again, I wanted to prove that this is something that I can do and really just build my mental fortitude that I can persevere. I can have something go wrong and be headstrong to continue doing the absolute best I could do. So I went first stone easy, second stone easy, third stone was okay. The only reason I was having difficulty is because I couldn't pick it up and walk with it on my stomach because of my knee. And so I was doing this like weird sort of waddle into the platform, but loaded the third one, no problem. Fourth stone, again, I loaded that without much problem at all. At that stage, Tom was just about to load his 5th stone. I thought, I'm not going to steal Tom's moment by just battling with a 5th stone just for the sake of it. I had secured second place. I didn't realize it at the time, but I also secured second place to Tom in the stones. So I just stepped aside, let Tom have his moment, and went from there. Now, after this, my hands are healing up incredibly fast. People are asking if it's something that's going to set me back, if I'm going to not go to the Royal Albert Hall, if I'm going to take some shows off. No, I'm good. I'm fine. I was at the physio yesterday. My knee is a spasmed muscle. It's not a tear. It's not anything structurally an issue. It's just if I do certain things, it'll flare it up. And the flare is just that I can't extend it all the way. It's really not the end of the world. It's not that bad. So I am 100% fine. And, in terms of the thoughts on coming second, I think this is where you find out who's played sports in the past and who hasn't, because I just came second in the world. Last year I came first, but I can't win every single show. That's just not the reality. But how hard can you persevere? And I'm more interested in where's my floor in these type of competitions. If things go wrong, how hard can I battle to have the best floor possible? And at the moment, my floor is 3rd place. I've never come worse than 3rd place in 16 shows in a row. And to come second at World's Strongest Man, 5 points behind Tom, who is in phenomenal shape. Hats off to Tom. I really have no bad feelings about that. I think it's really important that when I win, I say strongman is not the end all be all for me. It's not my whole life. And when I lose, I say the same thing. And I'm extremely competitive and I care deeply about the sport. I think anyone who saw the story, who's seen my hands, seen what I had to fight through would understand that. But it's okay. I won the Arnold last year, Worlds last year, the Rogue Invitational last year. I won the Arnold this year, and I came second at World's Strongest Man. It's a resume that I'm extremely proud of, regardless of you lost your title or you didn't. World's Strongest Man is like a Olympic gold medalist. I am a World's Strongest Man. You're in the club. When you win, you're in the club. And to me, that means a hell of a lot to me. I do not think that I will stop at one World's Strongest Man. I think I have at least one more in me, if not a few more in me. But the important thing is you just go out there, you put in a full effort, and you don't let anything stop you. I do look back and I think if I finished that frame, I would have won the show. And sometimes it just comes down to things that close. I've had enough breaks go my way that a break didn't go my way this time. And that's just what happens. Tom is a 100% deserving winner. Hands cutting, that is part of the show. Mine did, his didn't. If my grip was better, then I would have won. If his grip, he's worked really hard on it, and so he won. That's just sport, and that's how sport goes. So big shout out to Tom. Also, big shout out to Evan for securing his first World's Strongest Man podium. I was getting a bit worried with all his run and gun footage that he was preparing for an event if he missed the podium. But really good performance from him all in all. And yeah, please, in the comments, congratulate Tom Stoltman on a phenomenal World's Strongest Man victory, his third. We are witnessing a legacy. We are witnessing greatness. And I'm going to do my best to interrupt that. He's going to do his best to continue that. We'll have many more battles to come. Next up at Royal Albert Hall, me, Tom, Evan, we're all going to be there. You'll have the whole World's Strongest Man podium, and we'll go out, battle it out. I've got a spot in my heart for Royal Albert Hall. That was my first pro strongman show outside of World's Strongest Man, my first arena show. Still my favorite place to go compete, and I haven't been able to pull out a victory there yet. So I am dead set on doing my best at that show. I'll be training hard. I will be working hard because that's what I love to do. There's no need for me to take time off. I'm excited to get back to the gym, try some more stuff, improve the things that need to be improved, and kick on from there. So as per usual, guys, lift heavy, be kind. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and we'll catch you in the next video.